Thank you, and without objection. Representative Hinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. For the past 3 decades, we know that the DoD has been able to utilize FAR 12 as a procurement contracting tool for commercial contracting to quickly and affordably buy those commercially available products. That's critical. It helps to reduce red tape, enables more non-traditional suppliers to partner with DoD, preserves suppliers' IP and operations, delivers those innovative technologies to the warfighter faster, or it's supposed to, all while also saving taxpayer dollars and spreading those costs across a broader market. However, we know that that usage has really declined due to increasing bureaucracy. All of that red tape, it once accounted for nearly 20% of DoD procurement. That has significantly dropped. It's harder and it's costlier for businesses in the private sector to be able to engage with the DoD, much of why we're having this conversation here today. Over the past couple of years, I've been leading on an initiative to simplify the FAR 12 adoption through the NDAA process, but progress is a little slow there, while our adversaries are, as we've also heard today, rapidly modernizing their defense capabilities, and they're streamlining their procurement processes. So my first question today, Dr. Greenwald, how can this committee really help the DoD expand commercial contracting to be able to support our domestic workforce and our supply chain? So what should Congress be doing here?
So I have to kind of go back to when I was a staffer working for Chris and Senator McCain. It was so difficult to do what you're trying to do that we essentially started focusing on, let's take another pathway and go do other transactions, because then you could actually sit down and negotiate the type of clauses that are relevant in the commercial marketplace. That is probably the emergency way to go. Mm-hmm. We need to take FAR 12 and take all of the clauses that aren't relevant anymore to commercial contracting and get rid of them. Mm-hmm. We also need to distinguish between what is a commercial item. Mm-hmm. The department really doesn't have a problem buying commercial water, okay? You know, a commercial off the shelf, that's easy, I can price this, I know what it is. Mm-hmm. It gets really hard when you start modifying things. And it even gets harder when you have companies like an Anduril who are essentially creating military capabilities in a commercial way. Mm-hmm. And frankly, Congress has been trying to push on the department to create military capabilities in a commercial way. And that is included in FAR 12 as well. But the department has a hard time distinguishing between all of those and really wants to, it just can't essentially streamline doing something on this side of the spectrum. So that's why we do it with other transactions.
Right. But it sounds like you know what we need to do, so I look forward to talking
I'll be happy to sit down anytime.
I mean, I think at this point we need to talk about the roadmap, right? Even if it's tough and it's hard, we're at a juncture, a critical juncture where we need to be having those conversations about, yes, maybe we need to circumvent and do some of these other things right now, but we need to reform these processes because otherwise we won't be nimble. We won't be able to work with the private sector going forward. And I actually, you talk about scale and being able to produce, I actually got to tour Anduril's facility and I got to wear the VR headset and I felt like I was in one of my son's video games, right? And that's fitting for Mr. Lucky and what he does, obviously, but I was able to see that UUV in person, the school bus size thing, step into it, see what the compartments look like. Mr. Brose, how can we better align, as we're having this discussion, policy resources to accelerate production like what you've been able to do and ensure that we continue to maintain leadership in developing these critical systems? I would argue the private sector is doing this very, very well.
Thank you, and thank you for your interest and support. I want to build on the conversation you were just having because I think in the Department of Defense, there is a presumption that things that they want to buy are inherently defense unique and not commercial. And they sort of start from that premise and then sort of argue themselves maybe or get dragged into, okay, I guess I can concede that this could be a commercial item. Mm-hmm. I would argue we have to flip that on its head and start from the premise of, is it possible to make this in a commercial way? Is it possible to buy this in a commercial way? And then only sort of under duress concede that, okay, maybe this is just such a high-risk, militarily unique capability that I can't use a commercial contracting vehicle. As you know better than anyone, passing legislation is hard. Conducting oversight is easier. So in addition to what you're doing, I would offer actually forcing the department to come up and explain how they are using and whether they are using the authorities that you and other members of Congress have been giving them for a series of years would also be a great place to start. There are authorities that they have at their disposal, many of which were written by Dr. Greenwalt, additional ones being written by you, that would allow them to do all the things that we're talking about here today. And the question isn't necessarily always that we need additional authorities, it's that they actually have to be called to account to use the authorities and abide by the laws that Congress is providing. And I think that would go a long way to start getting into some specific cases where we do believe commercial contracting would apply. Systems could be built, designed, manufactured, and bought in commercial ways. And we shouldn't just jump to the conclusion that it's a defense-unique system, so it's got to go completely down the cost-type model with all of the problems that that entails.
Yeah. Well, certainly as a member of the Appropriations Committee, they all come to us and they want their checks. So that is a great place for us to ask a lot of those questions and make sure that they are executing on the will of Congress. So appreciate your testimony and your answers today. Thank you so much. I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Representative Stevens.